So today I decided to get a little more comfortable and just, sit down to tell you a few stories because I've been asked to tell stories about my time at Emirates, crazy passenger stories, crazy cruise stories. So you can imagine that after working there for 10 years, I've got so much tea. So the tea is piping hot, friends. Sit down, make sure you're comfortable, and let's do this. So, story number one. I was a very young, wide eyed, very happy 22-year-old, and I had been rostered a flight to Manila, which I was very excited about because it was during my probation period. I was 22, so it was the first 6 months of 2010. And I was rostered that flight with a very good friend of mine who I had done training with. So we were both super happy to be flying together. And it's a night flight, so most passengers are sleeping. So after you do the service, you just, you're meant to do your safety checks in the toilets, and then you're meant to go out and see if anyone needs anything, give out cups of water and all that fun stuff. So we did that. And then in the spare time that we had, because there were no call bells, there was nothing going on, we just sat down to talk. As two 22-year-old girls do, just gossip about life and everything. During the flight, we had this purser. He's a 40-year-old guy who kept coming back to the galley, which is where everyone was hanging out. And this guy, he kept that type of guy that seems kind of like a peacock. He kept trying to get every girl's attention, and we were all half his age. So I don't know. I guess he just wanted to feel important. I have no idea. And because, all of the girls were young and whatnot. And of course, this is a figure of authority. Everyone was like, oh, ha ha ha, laughing at his jokes and paying attention to him. Except for me and my friend, he would come, we would just listen to him for a second, and then we would go and do our own thing. We would either go out and do our checks or whatever, or we would just sit down and talk. But yeah, there was nothing going on. We had a beautiful flight. And he kept coming back. And then at one point, I'm in the middle galley and on the 777. It's a very small galley. And I'm setting up some stuff for the last service we had. This guy comes and he's he starts making inappropriate questions about my personal life, and did I have a boyfriend, and he had never met someone from, where I was from before, and, different things. And I was like, oh yeah, huh? Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. Da, da, da. Trying to get by. I was like, we only have a few hours left of this flight. Let me just smile and nod. Cause sometimes that's the best way to get through a situation. This wasn't the case, but anyway, I did it. And then, when we were about to land, and so I was collecting blankets, which is what you have to do when you're in economy. Mind you, this is when I first had joined. So I was carrying bags full of blankets, and this guy comes this close to me. He's like, you've redefined my understanding of beauty. But this close, guys, no personal space. And I'm like, what? I don't give a shit even about what you're saying. Why are you standing so close to me? And what are you even talking about? This is so unprofessional. But anyway, I just looked at him okay. And I kept going. When we got to the layover, me and my friend made plans. We hung out, just the two of us. The rest of the crew, including the purser, hung out all together. And the next day on the way back, this guy, he was like, where were you guys? We didn't see you. Oh no, we just went shopping and for a massage, and that's it. We didn't do much. Why didn't you go out with all of us? Well, because we were tired and went to sleep and didn't want to. Where does it say in the contract that I have to hang out with you on my time off? No, you know what I mean? He didn't like that very much, but like I didn't say that, of course. Like I was just like, oh no, we were just tired, so we went to our rooms and slept, and then we just grabbed a bite the next day and whatever. He wasn't convinced. He didn't like it, but I ignored it. We did the flight, had a great flight. The crew was amazing. And this guy goes, at one point, he calls me to the side and he says, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure, what's up? What's going on? And he's like, I noticed that you are not interacting with your other colleagues. And I was like, and he said, can you tell me the names of 3 of your colleagues that are not, well, my friends? And I was like, yeah, this, and this. And he was like, okay. I was like, why? And he's like, well, you haven't been interacting with them much. So, that's not okay. That's part of the job. And I was like, what do you mean? Everyone, like most of the crew were from the Philippines and they were all speaking Tagalog, which is something that you're not allowed to do in Emirates. But I didn't say anything because I didn't care. I understand the need to speak your own language. I don't care, and I didn't think they were talking about me. So I don't care, and I told them, well, everyone was speaking their own language, which is really not allowed. And I didn't say anything. I'm sticking, with my friend. We're both speaking English because her language is English, and like we're just hanging out while working. There hasn't been any complaints. Everything is good. So I don't understand what the concern is. And he said, well, no, he was just trying to look for an excuse. And he said, I'm just going to have to write to your manager because you need to interact with everyone, including me. You need to sit down and talk to me about like life and whatever. I looked at him and I was like, no, this is when I had it. Cause yes, I was 22. Yes, I was naive, but I'm not an idiot. And I've always been sassy, let's say. So I looked at him and said, you and I, we both know what this is about. This is about you wanting everyone's attention and to feed your ego. And you know what? I know I haven't done anything wrong. In the contrary, I've done everything perfectly right. And if you have an issue, and if this is as you say, that I need to sit down and feed your ego and talk to you, like for an hour instead of going out and working, which is what I've been doing, then let's bring it up to my manager. No problem. Like I really get along with my manager. He knows me. Like he knows how well I work. I don't have an issue. Just write the report. And he was so angry and he left and didn't speak to me for the rest of the flight. So to me, that's a happy ending. But can you imagine like how weak does your ego have to be that you need to like basically corner this 22-year-old girl when you're a 40-year-old man, because she's not giving you the attention that you want, which is basically flirting with you. No, man, I'm sorry. That's not how I roll. And that's something that actually one of my trainers warned me in training college. And I always remember him. He was my service trainer. And I remember he said to me, because you do role playing in training college. And he role played as if he was a passenger who was really hitting on me and making me uncomfortable. And I cried, I remember, because I was so uncomfortable. And he said to me, the only reason why I'm doing this to you is because you're very smiley, you're very nice, and you're going to come across assholes like this who are going to hit on you and make you very uncomfortable. So I wanted to know if you were able to handle it. And I was like, well, I'm clearly not, But anyway, I was back then. So thank you to that trainer because he actually did a good job preparing me for that situation. So yeah, that's story 1. This story is a little more recent. So I was already a supervisor. I was working on the A380. And in case you don't know, you have different galleys. So, now I think that you only have one supervisor in economy for the 380. But back then you used to have 2. One was in charge of the galley in the front, which is in charge of the fly deck as well and taking care of the pilots. And the other supervisor is in charge of the back. It was December 31st. And flying on December 31st sucks because it's New Year's Eve. And it doesn't only suck because you don't get to celebrate. It also sucks because traffic in Dubai is hell if you're flying back to Dubai. So it's horrible. So I was already like, why this flight? But anyway, it was so cold in Moscow. I remember it was freaking freezing. It was snowing. Anyway, I was glad to be going back to Dubai where the weather is nice. So we went back to Dubai, where we were going back to Dubai. We closed the last door. Everyone's on board, no issues during boarding. You know, you always have to stay vigilant, make sure that everyone is behaving and whatnot, because you don't want a problem up in the air, right? We take off, and as soon as we get the sign that we can get up from our jump seats and go set up for service and whatnot, I see a guy running from his seat to the toilet next to me, right? So I said, okay, he must be in a rush. I opened the toilet for him. He went, whatever. And then he sat back down. And let me tell you, that was after takeoff. I never made it to the galley after I got up to do the service. I didn't manage to run the service the way I was supposed to because it was a supervisor, because the entire time I was dealing with an incredibly drunk passenger who had taken his own vodka bottle and had finished the bottle before takeoff without us noticing, right? He bought his own bottle in duty free, needless to say. And then he kept drinking from more bottles that he had, and he kept taking them out. And I was like, where the hell is he getting these bottles from? Every time I saw, and he was like being disruptive. That's the problem. Like, he was being annoying to the people next to him. He was shouting, singing, screaming, everyone was like, the hell, it's super uncomfortable. And the policy that Emirates has is that you can have your own alcohol bottle if you want. But the thing is that crew have to serve it to you, and the reason why is to avoid you getting drunk. Like, we need to have some sort of control over the alcohol that people are consuming, because if anything happens on board, it is the crew's responsibility, and it could end up in a diversion, which means landing somewhere else that is in your final destination, or a medical issue or anything, or even a security issue where, they get aggressive or whatnot. So the idea is that the crew are always in control of what's going on with alcohol, right? So I told them, like, I'll take it with me and I'll serve you. Just let me know. So, and of course, the crew have the ability to deny alcohol. So he said, yeah, sure, take it. And then I walk by, he's got another bottle and he's drinking it. I told him, like, I already told you can't do that. Give me that bottle, I'll serve you. I take the bottle, walk by again, same thing. Mind you, it had been an hour since takeoff. So I was like, oh my God, is this going to be my entire flight? Spoiler alert, it was my entire flight. So he kept drinking, and it got to a point where he just kind of like went like this to one of my crew who was trying to tell him to sit down because there was turbulence and whatnot. And he kind of like tried to like attack her. He was so drunk, he fell on the floor, but he was harassing her, he was like about to punch her. And I was like, no, what is this? We managed to get all the bottles, and like, I was going in and out the flight deck. The captain did not believe me. He thought I was exaggerating until, the purser was nowhere to be found. I was left to deal with that situation on my own. It's not always like that. I was particularly on that flight. I just had a really shitty crew, and it wasn't not the crew that worked with me. Those guys were the best, and they were supporting me 100%. But, the senior, like, leadership, the rest of the leadership team and the captain were just awful. And it got to a point where I was like, look, man, like, I need to call the police on ground. This guy is out of control. He's been trying to hit your crew. He's been disobedient. He's a threat, and he's got a connecting flight to Thailand. He can't go. Like, this is just a lot, and I have to document everything that everyone else has seen. And the captain was like, well, no, we're not going to do that because, it's New Year's. I want to go home. And I looked at him and I'm like, wait, hold on. You think I don't want to go home? Are you serious? We're talking about a person who's been harassing your crew, the people you're in charge of, and, who's completely drunk and could potentially, do something and try to hit someone and be a security threat to someone on the next flight. Like, you need to call the police on ground. I was so insisting that he was like, fine. And then after we landed and we had the police there, when he looked at the guy and he's like, oh shit, you were right. And I was like, well, yeah, what did you think? That I just felt like, oh, let's blacklist this guy, let's get the police, let's get him arrested, and that's it? No, he's been harassing us the whole flight. I haven't sat down for a second. Like, I've been babysitting this idiot this entire time. So yeah, that was fun. So the police, assessed the situation, talked to the guy, took a few like testimonies from different people around who all said the same version, passengers, crew, and they didn't arrest him, but they did deport him back to his country. And he also was blacklisted from Emirates. I don't know for how long, but I do know he was blacklisted because I was told afterwards by the captain. So yeah, so that was the time I got an idiot blacklisted because he just would not stop drinking and became a threat to everyone around him. Lots of fun and games, guys. When I tell you that this job was mentally and physically, but mentally and emotionally tiring, I am not lying. I'm not saying every flight was like that, but I have had a lot of situations because people sometimes go crazy. Like, people, when you put them in an unfamiliar environment, like a plane, they just go nuts. And yeah, the people who have to deal with that is unfortunately the crew. So there you go. And the last story for... If you like this video and you want another video of me telling you crazy onboard stories from my time when I was a flight attendant, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can make a part 2. All right, let's keep going. And the last story was a flight to the US. And I'm saying it was a flight to the US because it was a freaking long flight. It was like a 16-hour flight. And we had turbulence. There was a lot of turbulence. I was working in business class on the 380. And as you know, the 380 is the double decker. So business class is upstairs. Towards the back, you have a business lounge. Not a business lounge, a lounge where you can have, there's a bar, you can have cocktails, you can sit down, hang out with people. I have a lot of stories from, boozy passengers from the lounge. I'll tell you in a bit. It's usually the lounge is usually a place where people go and they think they're like at a bar, like, anywhere, or at their therapist, and they tell you about their lives and they pull out photos and show you, oh, I have 3 jets and I have 2 yachts and this is my wife who's 30 years younger than me and whatever. And you're like, thank you for this information, but I don't even know what to do with this. To me, it was a horrible position. It's great because you're just standing there, but the people you have to put up with, it's like, it can go really well or it could just be so annoying. But anyway, and that particular flight, there were a lot of people get to know each other at the bar. And in that particular flight, we had a group of, 7 people who were just hanging out there and getting to know each other. It was the first time they had seen each other. So they were just hanging out and talking business and talking shit as well, and just talking. And the crew was there hanging out at the lounge, and all of a sudden we get really rough turbulence. Now, of course, this bar is at the end of the aircraft, so it's at the tail, so it moves even more than any other part of the aircraft. So I made an announcement. I said, crew, take your seats, because I was the person in charge of the plane, because the purser was on break. We do get breaks during these long flights, and the pursers leave one of the supervisors in charge. That was me at that time. So I said, crew, take your seats. Everyone takes their seats. Now, the lounge has like a sofa on one side. Well, this version, because there are new versions of the aircraft, but this particular one had like a sofa on one side and then a sofa on the other side. And the crew said, and then the crew sat down, and I had nowhere to sit. And I said, and they sat down on the jump seats as well. I had nowhere to sit. And I said, okay, cool. That's fine. I'll sit down, like in one of the passenger seats that are empty, just a couple of rows down, which you're meant to do if there's strong turbulence. So as I was leaving, this guy goes, "What? Excuse me?" And I was just like, I didn't say anything. I just looked at him like, "I'm going to give you one more chance to tell me, to either not say anything or say, oh, sorry, it's just kidding, And I looked at him like this, and he went again. He went like trying to be cool and whatever. And I was like, I was tired. It was a 16-hour flight. I was just, I was underslept, so tired. Already knew I was going to have jet lag when I got there. I was freaking, and the Latina came out. As we all know, this happens. And he said, "Why don't you sit down here, sweetheart?" Sweetheart. I'm like, what? And I looked at him, and the crew looked at me like, oh no, she's about to explode. And I did explode. I looked at him and I said, first of all, my name is Veronica, and I pointed at my name badge. I'm not sweetheart. I don't know you. Who are you? I have no idea who you are. And secondly, that is harassment. That is disrespectful. I am working, and how dare you talk to me like that? And he was like, oh, no. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I was like, no. Don't talk to me. And I better not find out that you're talking this way to my crew, because it's going to get bad, because this is harassment, and it's not tolerated in this airline. And it's not tolerated in my flight. So just so you know. And he went like, okay. And that's it. And nothing else happened. The crew were laughing afterwards. They were like, you went crazy. But you know what the thing is? From my experience, if you don't stop these guys who have had a few drinks, and you don't stop them like that, because if he told me like, and it was just the two of us, I mean, I could tell him respectfully, you know what? Respectfully, I'm not comfortable with you making, this type of comment. So please don't, But when this guy, we're talking about a guy that's trying to, be like like the big thing in front of like a bunch of other guys, you're putting my authority into question. You're making me look like an idiot. And on the flight, the crew in general are the figures of authority, especially if you're talking to a supervisor, a purser. These are the figures of authority. So if anything happens, if there's an emergency, I need you to listen to my instructions. So I can't just like smile and say, you're so funny. First of all, that's not in my nature. And secondly, that's going to diminish my authority. So no, I had situations where the crew or me was too nice. And then, we had problems. We either had, someone being grabbed, by the butt, or someone being touched inappropriately in another way. So sometimes you have to like stop them from the beginning, And also, I don't appreciate that type of comments. So yeah, those are the three stories for today. I do have juicier ones, but those are the ones that I could think of today. I'm going to write them down and see what I can remember. And if you want to see more stories, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.